The real estate market crash. That's not going to happen. Dude. All right. So why is there not going to be a real estate market crash? This is just so blindingly obvious to me. And it's the weirdest thing that keeps, and maybe it's just because it gets clicks. I don't know. I don't know. But look how close the house is to the road there. I don't know why you'd build that big old house right there on this busy road. You can't take a left against traffic during the mornings because this is a main road to get to Route 400, which takes you into Atlanta, or it takes you into a downtown Alpharetta or Milton. Stupid. I don't get it, man. If you get all that money, why would you put it right there? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, all right. So why will there not be a home crash? Well, it's quite it's simple, man. For three reasons and three reasons only. Massive immigration, first and foremost. Even the stopping of the immigration, right? Just closing the borders, stopping of immigration still has a significant demand, because we're not going to deport millions of people as I wish we would. We're not gonna. The few might self-deport, but you're still gonna have this massive increase in human beings that need a place to live. That's just a fact. All right, so that's number one. And unfortunately, Trump has bought into the U.S. Chamber of Commerce insanity. We need 600,000 Chinese workers to do H-1B stuff. We don't have the talent, and so we're not going to really stop the flow of immigration. Even though if they're stopping the flow of illegal immigration, they're not going to stem the flow of massive immigration as well. Because Republicans say, "Hey, we don't like illegal, but we love legal." I'm like, no, we need to put a freaking kibosh on that for at least a decade, a la Calvin Coolidge. That's what we need to do. Anyway, so immigration, population increase. Just no two ways around that. All right, increase of demand. Part two, new building is still way below historical norms, man. Not even close. New building is going up well below historically. And there's no, it doesn't look like there's any change or hope for the future. You're just not getting the number of builds going up. You're just not. We're talking well below historic norms when the population size was well below where we are now. So new construction, smaller than it was when we had a half the population we have now. Think about that. So, all right, so you got population increase, new construction decrease. And then it gets even worse. And this is where people that argue that it's not the population size, like the Fed under Joe Biden, not the Fed, the Treasury government under Joe Biden, were saying, it's not the increase in immigration, it's just not. And what they say is the increase of the older people buying a house. I said, that doesn't make any sense, because the older people already have their house. But I was like, okay. Anyway, it's a stupid argument they made, and I just chuckled. I said they were doing anything to say it wasn't because of the immigration. It was because of the immigration. It was because of not enough new construction. Part three, though, is the housing stock. The housing stock is over 50 years old, or I should say over. It's nearing 50 years, my friends. 50 years old is the median age for the housing stock in the United States. 50 years. All right, that means something that was built in 1975. The median home in the United States was built in 1975, which is twice. It's doubled since the 1950s. The median housing stock in the 1950s was about 20 to 25 years old, and now it's twice that in 2025. So not only have we had a massive increase in population, not only we've had massive declines in number of new construction homes being built, but the housing stock is the highest it's ever been in terms of the age. And what does that tell you? That means a lot of these houses need significant upgrades. Air conditioning, insulation, you name it. Freaking heat pumps, all that stuff. Significant upgrades are needed. And so how much does it cost to buy a house, a new house? Well, how much does it cost to buy a house that's 50 years old that you got to make significant upgrades for? And on top of that, how much does it cost in terms of the labor to get the people to do these significant upgrades? And that's the problem that we have. And that's why there won't be any market crash at all. In fact, if anything, I can almost project that your housing value will be significantly higher today than it will be in 5 and 10 years, which is why if you're on the fence about buying a new house, you better do it now, man. because it's only going to get worse, dude. They're not building anymore. I mean, what I mean is, not gonna, all of a sudden magically Trump's going to wave his magic freaking Trump finger and say, build more houses. Well, it's not going to happen. It could, but what's the incentive for people to build more houses? Oh, remodel the older houses. Okay. I mean, again, you could. I get it. And that happens. But where's the incentive for that? Well, the incentive is in the demand. And then the interesting thing about Biden's thing, because I was reading this article by Biden on the Treasury government, the Treasury website is not by Biden, but about his clowns and the Janet Yellen and whatnot. And they said one of the reasons the incentive isn't there for new building is because many of the people who need the houses most on the lower end, they're not making the kind of money that they need to basically, for them to qualify for a mortgage, the house has to be a low price enough, right, for them to qualify for mortgage because of debt to income. The problem is a lot of these builders say there's no profits there. We can't make money by selling $250,000 houses. I thought that's pretty, that makes a lot of sense to me, actually. I did get something out of that article or a white paper from the Janet Yellen Treasury government from 2024. I said, that's interesting. Never thought about it like that. I always thought starter homes would be very profitable. Well, they're probably very profitable in massive subdivisions like they do in Phoenix, but for starter homes, like for where we live on a third of an acre or something like that, it sounds like they can't be that profitable because, for a $250,000, $300,000 house, 3-bed, 2-bath, what's the cost that goes into it in terms of materials, in terms of labor and all that, on top of all the freaking regulations you got to go through. How much money can they possibly make on that home? And I guess not that much. It's pretty interesting. So the profit margin is low. So they're going to have to build higher. The people who are doing it are building higher and higher, more costly houses that make it harder for lower income people. And I mean lower income, not like, freaking, Section 8 housing, but just people, 25 to 30 years old. Makes it harder for them to afford a house. And that's another thing too. So anyway, it's interesting. Housing stock. We got very few houses being built, new construction permits being built relative to where we were 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago in the population size. No housing crash. So you better buy a house now if you can, because it's only going to increase. All right. God bless. We'll see you.